Welcome back, everybody, to 31 1980s horror movies for Halloween, where I'm counting down my favorite horror movies from the 1980s. At number 23, we have a classic zombie movie by the late, great George Romero, and for me, this is my favorite zombie movie by George Romero, and that is Day of the Dead. It's interesting because when I was younger, I would say Dawn of the Dead is my favorite zombie movie, and definitely my favorite zombie movie by George Romero, but now Day of the Dead is my favorite zombie movie, and it's not even my favorite zombie movie, and honestly, it's not my favorite George Romero movie. I do love it, but you're gonna see my favorite George Romero movie a little later on this list. People on my channel know that I'm not as big of a zombie fan as I used to be, because I've gotten so zombied out from the constant bombardment of zombie-related material we've gotten for a long time. So when I look for a zombie movie, I look for a zombie movie that does something different.
Look, Sarah, look. See, it wants me. It wants food, but it has no stomach. It can take no nourishment from what it ingests.
So, the main thing I love about Day of the Dead is the fact that we've gotten to the point where the zombie apocalypse has pretty much run its full course. The world is now mostly zombies, and the few survivors we have left are desperately trying to survive and try to figure out what to do in this new world. And the other big thing I love about Day of the Dead is that it shows an element that I wish we would see in future zombie movies. We see the zombies start to evolve a little bit. One zombie in particular, Bub, and we'll get back to him in a little bit.
Hello, Aunt Alicia. Hello.
So Day of the Dead has the typical themes of George Romero Dead movies, about how people cannot work together. You have this group of scientists and this group of soldiers living in this underground bunker, and they're trying to basically figure out how to solve the zombie apocalypse. The scientists are looking for a cure to zombieism, and the soldiers are just kind of done with this whole thing. This is another example of characters being assholes. Our protagonists are not assholes, but you can tell they've been beaten down for so long. They've been dealing with this situation for so long that it's starting to wear on them, and tempers are running high, as they would in this situation.
I won't have you going around doping up any of my men without orders from me. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Fuck you, sir.
And then we have the soldiers led by Captain Rhodes, one of the greatest horror movie villains. Captain Rhodes is the villain in this movie, and he's great. He's a soldier who you can tell has been at this for so long, and he's about ready to snap. He's just done with this shit completely, and now that he's in the chain of command, you can tell he's taking full advantage of it because this is the only control he has.
I'm running this monkey farm now, Frankenstein, and I want to know what the fuck you're doing with my time!
That's the thing about Captain Rhodes. I mean, the world has come apart. Humanity does not have control of the world anymore. Now he has this group of survivors that he is essentially in charge of. This is the only thing he has control over. And when you think about it, after losing control of everything and gaining control with something, yeah, someone in his position is going to go too far with that, seeing as, again, this is the only thing he has control of in his life anymore. Don't get me wrong, Captain Rhodes is still an asshole, and he's one of the greatest movie assholes ever.
Sit down, or so help me God, I'll have you shot.
What?
I said, I'll have you shot.
I have to say the protagonists in this movie, I love the protagonists from Dawn of the Dead. They are fantastic characters, but I think the protagonists in this movie are a little more interesting. You have the character Sarah, who is one of the scientists. You have the character of John, who is a chopper pilot. And then you have McDermott, who is, like, the radio guy. And he buddies up with John. And what I love about that is John and McDermott are sort of at odds with Sarah at first, but then Sarah and these two sort of develop an understanding with each other. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Sarah goes and has a drink with McDermott and John, and they just have this conversation out in this little area of paradise that John and McDermott have created for themselves.
I came down here to get drunk. I don't have the energy.
Hey. It takes more energy to keep quiet than it does to speak the mind. Go ahead. Let go of what you got now.
There is this air of hopelessness to the movie, and it makes perfect sense because an apocalypse is kind of hopeless, and I mean, it just makes sense that everyone in this situation is feeling hopeless. But then we have the head scientist here, who's been dubbed Dr. Frankenstein. This is the man who's working with the zombies, and he's pretty much given up on finding a cure for the zombies, like the other scientists are trying to do, and he's trying to find a way to domesticate the zombies, which brings us to Bub, my favorite zombie in the Romero Dead series. This is the aspect that makes Day of the Dead so good. The fact that we have the zombie of Bub, who's starting to evolve. He's more calm around the doctor. He's, again, being domesticated. Like, the doctor gives him a book, and he remembers reading the book, and he's flipping through the book. He remembers how to use a gun. He remembers how to use a radio. But of course, Day of the Dead has great gore effects. Tom Savini worked on this one. He worked on Dawn of the Dead as well. And this is Tom Savini's opus. I would say that this and another movie that we will be talking about later on the list, I don't want to say what it is here because I don't want to spoil it, but this and another movie are Tom Savini's best practical effects. Like, Day of the Dead has some of the greatest gore effects ever. There's this great scene that adds this interesting effect where someone gets his head ripped off, and as the zombies are tearing into his neck, you hear his voice get higher and higher pitched because they're fucking with his vocal cords. And then, of course, we have Captain Rhodes' death. The thing about Captain Rhodes is, since he is the villain of this movie and he's such an asshole, he has to get the worst death of them all. And he gets it. And yes, this is one of those situations where they used real organs, like animal organs, and they went bad while preparing the scene, so he had to sniff rotting organs while filming this scene, just bleh. But again, it's such a great death, and it's such a satisfying death. For a character like Captain Rhodes, you need to give him a satisfying death, and he gets that here. I may be tired of zombie movies, but again, there are always going to be zombie movies that I still love. Day of the Dead is my favorite Romero zombie movie. It's just so well done. And when it comes to Halloween, most people like to watch Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead, but give Day of the Dead a shot this year. It's very gory, very interesting, very tragic, but such a great movie. I mean, just, if you're watching a zombie movie this year, if you want to watch a Romero zombie movie this year for Halloween, put on Day of the Dead. It's just so fucking good.